Hey guys, welcome to another episode of What's Your Build? In this one we have the Arrma Outcast, and this one started life as a Notorious, and we got it from a pawn shop. It was a pretty good deal on it and it came complete, but it wasn't in really great shape, and we did a video, and if you take a look at that one on the channel, and we'll put a link up for that, we show you how this is built from the ground up. So we tear the Notorious apart and we put all these new upgrades on it. In this video, we're going to go over what we did. We're going to explain why we did what we did, and we have some questions that we're going to answer along the way. This should be a pretty informative video. I can't wait to get on with it. Check this out. Okay, now we had two choices here for the body when we started with this truck, and it did come with the blue Notorious body, and that older style really didn't suit me very well. I love the look of this new, more modern one. And here is the standard one, and this one is really cool. This is the 6S body. So that one I think is really easy to see out in the field. It stands out good, doesn't hide in the shadows very well. This one, this is the EXB body, and this one is magical. The way they did the paint on it, just the look of it, this one really does look cool. So we do have two options here. The orange one here is going to be our basher body. So when you see this thing out running, we're going to use this one on all the video footage, because if we're going to damage one, I want to tear this one up. However, when you see it on the shelf, most of the time you'll see it with this one on it, because this one just looks so much better. After you beat that one up, it wouldn't be so cool. So we're going to keep the black one as the shelf queen body for this one. Let's get on to the car. All right, as you can see, this is a very short wheelbase truck, and that gives it its stunt ability. Having the wheels closer together, especially the size of these things, the mass of those tires gives you a lot of controllability. We're talking huge backflips, we're talking control in the air. They really do make a big difference, but these aren't the tires that came with it. These are tires from the Fire team. And I really like these tires. I think these are probably the best attribute to that car. These really do a great job. They're basically the same size as the backflips that come with the Outcast, but at the same time, these have a more aggressive tread pattern to them. They have kind of a neat modern look to them. They really do add nicely to the vehicle. Now, there's one thing that we did that, you know, all of these parts that we're going to show you here, we purchased from eBay. We got every one of them from eBay, and those parts kind of come and go. We're going to do what we can to try and find those parts, so we can put links in the description down below. But on the back here, we've got this T-Bone Racing wheelie bar, and if you watch the channel, you know T-Bone went out of business. These you can't get anymore, so it is what it is. But I love these. I wish someone would pick up where they left off and get to build and stuff like this, because these were the best wheelie bar for the platform that we've ever come across. One of the major things I want to show you is right here. Have a look at that. That is a carbon fiber chassis. Scorched RC carries them. eBay, you can get these on there. Type in the type of vehicle. So if you're going to go Arrma Outcast 6S chassis, and it'll pull this up. And this one came without instructions. And if you want to see how this goes on and all that cool stuff, watch the video for the build on this, and we show you what's involved in putting it in. It's really a nice chassis. It's nice and thick. I believe it's 4 millimeters, 5 millimeters. I don't know, could be up to 1/4 of an inch. I know it's a pretty thick chassis, and it works really well. This car controls so nicely. And part of it is the rigidity of that chassis. Now we do have braces and stuff in there, so that makes a difference as well. Well, let's leave it right there for a second and show you what else is up. We have the version 5 RPM arm replacements on it too, and we hear good and bad things about these arms. Our experience has been nothing but positive with these. The stock arms are so rigid, you generally have failure down in the hinge pins. That's a bad thing, because we don't want to break the internals on the car. If you're going to break anything, you want to break anything right in the arm area. These are cheap, easy to replace, short time to get one off, get another one on. The front ones, these are a must do in my opinion. The back ones, you can leave the stock arms on it if you like. Those don't seem to be so necessary in the back, but in the front, definitely want to get the RPM arms on there. They flex more, so when you come into contact with something, the wheel can bend around a little bit and absorb some of that impact, and then they flex back into shape. Now, we've had people say that they bow over time. Well, they're plastic and they're flexible, and that's a possibility that they could bow over time. Put a new one on it. That's not a big deal. When you buy your arms like that, buy a set, buy an extra. If you have an arm go bad, swap it out. It's not that big of a deal, but these are way more durable. If you want durability for your RC, these arms really do a great job. But durability is a two-edged sword. You can only make your car so tough and resilient. The real important part of that is the driver. And if you don't have the driving skills yet for something of this caliber, it doesn't really matter how you build it, you're going to be breaking stuff, because there are things you need to know about how to run these cars. There's a lot of power involved in these. These things have a lot of torque. The motor and the speed control provide a lot of power to the internals. And if you don't know when to let off the throttle, if you don't know when to slow down, if you run into solid objects, you're going to be breaking stuff. It doesn't matter how tough you make something. If you don't know how to drive it properly, you're going to have durability issues, and that's just part of the hobby. This is a more of an advanced car because of the power footprint that it has. It's short, it's got a lot of mass to it, it goes really fast, which creates a lot of kinetic energy, which gets those beautiful backflips going and the wheelies and all that cool stuff. That's what this is, but it does require a certain level of responsibility goes in there too, but it really has to do with skill set. Now, if you put like the DX3 radio in this system, then you can crank it down to 50% power and you can practice with it and get more comfortable with it. But if you get it brand new, slap a 6S battery in it and just pull the trigger to see what it'll do, you're going to need to visit your local hobby store, because without the skill set to drive it, this will get out of pocket really fast and you'll wind up needing parts. Okay, so let's get down inside of this really quick and let's show you what's inside of it. And we'll tip it up like so you can see what's in here. Now, this has a Spectrum 150 ESC in there, and those are okay. I'm not a real fan of the Spectrum speed controls. We've had more problems with those than most of the other ones. We have had a lot of problems with the Traxxas ones as well. And what it comes down to basically is, if you're running the stock electronics, at some point you're going to need to upgrade. Right now, the stock stuff is still working well in this, so it has the Spectrum 150 speed control in it, and it has the 2050 motor, and that's also a Spectrum. And both of those work pretty well until they don't. We had the same system in the fire team, and it barfed up the speed control just out of the blue. It's not like we took a big impact or anything like that. It just decided to stop working. And we checked into it and it burned itself up. So we weren't in a hot situation. We weren't going super fast. We weren't pushing it. We were just ripping around in the yard, and we only did that for maybe 5 minutes and it burned itself down just like that. And it's this same speed control. And I believe that's the third one of those that we've had fail. Now, they did come up with a new one, and that's the one that's in the new Big Rock 6S has it, the Kraton EXB, the new version of that. They have the version 2 on those, and they're having power issues. So when they get that all sorted out, maybe they have it down. But at the same time, when we replace these, we either go with Hobby Wing or we go with basically the BLX 185s, and we have never had one of those fail on us yet. And we have a lot of those here at the studio, in my opinion, and I've heard people say that this is just a rebranded Hobby Wing. Whatever it is, we've had really great luck with those, so when this one goes down, we will most likely go after that next. And sitting right next to that up in here is the Servo, and we swapped that stock one out and we put a Feetech 35 kg servo in it. And we really like Feetech here. Feetech makes good stuff. It's really inexpensive. For the cost of one, you can buy 3 of those. So if you go and buy a high-end servo, you can be upwards of $100 and you could buy 3 of these for that cost. And these things are pretty fast and they're really tough. And if you get a good servo saver in there, they last. They don't overheat. We've had nothing but good luck with them. We did burn one down, but that was totally my fault. And what it come down to is I didn't check the servo saver when I put it in. It was pretty much locked down. And when I probably only ran it for 5 minutes maximum, I bumped into something, stripped the gears right out of it because the servo saver wasn't functioning. You want there to be some slippage in there and then the servo will last forever. This is really a good servo and we stand behind those. We really like the way those operate. And since we were talking about the arms, this is a Talan Wing right here. And let's turn it up this way so you can see it. So this is off of a Talan EXB and it's the right size and it works really well. It does take a trick to get the body on because it has to go between here. So the body has to fish down through here, but that's not a big deal. This really looks good on the car and it's sitting on RPM wing mounts. And these are, if you watch the channel, you know what I'm gonna do here. These things twist and torque around just really nicely and they absorb a lot of the impact in the mount without transferring that energy up into the diff housing and all of that stuff. It keeps the pressure on the wing and the mount and it takes it up and then it comes right back into shape. And if it does sit a little askew, all you gotta do is twist it over and it'll sit where it belongs. I really am a believer in those wing mounts. I think they're outstanding and I think they're definitely necessary. We've run the stock wing mounts first on all of our RCs. And they usually break this screw in the back here. And so it's right in here. See if I can get you to look at this. Right across here, there's a screw that goes back through here. It goes through the shock tower into the plastic of the diff housing. And those long screws are usually what break first. And that's because the torque put against this pulls on those screws and bends them and then breaks them off. With these ones, we rarely break those screws because it takes up all that energy right here in the wing mount because it's so flexible, it doesn't put enough energy against those screws to cause the damage that you get with the stock ones. They keep making the stock ones stronger and stronger and stronger, but the attachment points are the same, so they still have the same problem when it comes to breaking the parts that it connects to. And with the EXB Kraton, we had the stock wing mounts on here. We shoveled it in on the wing one time, so we had a bad come off the ramp, and it landed wing first, and it literally ripped the diff housing open. So when it hit hard enough to twist all this up. It pulled the shock tower upward, and it split the diff housing. Now, we weren't jumping that far, but it's the type of energy it allows to transfer into the car that makes these wing mounts so worth it. So definitely a must-have. You're gonna put the RPM arms on it, get the wing mount too, because it makes a huge difference to durability. All right, so let's have a look at something that I think is also necessary, and I'll explain why we use these, but if you take a look, we pulled one of the wheels off of this, and this is the hub carriers for the front, and these sit on the pillow balls. And the neat thing about this is that's an alloy set from Atomik, and it doesn't really matter whether you get Atomik or Hot Racing, whatever. The idea is to get rid of the plastic ones because they can pop off the balls, and that's a bad thing. With these ones, you can get them adjusted easily. If you have to take these, if you take a look right here, you'll see these two, they're like the size of a dime, but it's a flat threaded unit that holds the pillow balls in the right place. So you get just enough movement so it doesn't bind. And that's all in this setting for these two right here. When you're working with the plastic ones in the field, they can be exceptionally tricky. And when you have to get through here and thread these in because you had a problem, in the field you can have a half an hour, 40 minutes of downtime trying to get these threaded in properly. With these aluminum ones, it solves all that issue because they'll find the threads and thread in properly because they're all machined parts designed to go together. These go on exactly as the plastic ones do, and they're really zero effort to put in. Take the other ones off, put these in place, problem solved. No problems there. These are from Atomik, like I say. But it doesn't really matter. The idea is to get the alloy ones. Now, we've had people ask, and I'm going to go into one of the questions here, and this is our first question. And it says, why use the alloy hub carriers when the arms fail at the hinge pins most often? And that is a good question, because if you are running the stock arms, they're a lot stiffer, they're a lot more rigid, and when you take an impact, so when you catch a corner like right here, and you're not under power so the tire can roll over it, like say you hit something tall like a post, those solid arms are going to transfer all of that energy right in here to the hinge pins, and that's just what's going to happen because there's nowhere for it to absorb that energy. Once the tire collapses and squeezes in and it comes to the hard area of the wheel, that's when it transfers the rest of the power into the arms. Now, with the RPM arms, the arms will flex. They'll take it up and they'll absorb some of that, and it takes that pressure off of the hinge pin. So right down in here, this area of the hinge pin, you can take some of it up in the flex of the arm so it eliminates some of that energy before it gets put on the hinge pins. We have a lot less issues with hinge pins with the RPM, the arms, than the stock ones. So that being said, you want your strength on the outside. So what that means is out here where it's sitting on these two balls, that's a lot of pressure from the wheel, the tire, all of the energy that's put into it, the kinetic energy involved on these two connection points. And these can split, they can come off, whatever, but with the aluminum ones, they don't. So you want this to be as strong as possible. You also want your internals here to be as strong as possible, but you want flexibility in your arms. That's where your durability comes from. Yes, you have to be a fairly decent driver and know when to get on the throttle and what to avoid, and that comes with reflexes and practice. But at the same time, if you have those, then it comes to the car. What can the car take? And you want your flexibility in the arms so that it doesn't transfer all of that energy into the hinge pin area, which causes internal damage. You can break everything from the bell crank set, you can break all the internals are vulnerable if you can't absorb some of that energy on the outside. So we highly recommend, especially in the front, guys, RPM arms in the front, RPM wing mounts to go with it on the outside, alloy hub carriers for the front. We're running the stock ones in the back. We don't have a problem with those. We hardly ever break those. But in the front, where it sits on the pillow balls, definitely we need some alloy ones out there for strength in this area. So again, we're going to go strength, flexibility, strength. And that's the way we set our stuff up. And we don't have all that much trouble with these RCs, and we're really thankful for that. Okay, so we're going to lean this up like this. Hopefully I can get you a decent image of this on the screen. If not, I'll get you a close-up. But right here we have the tower-to-tower brace that goes all the way across the top, and it's this red bar here, and it's got ends on it. Now these come plastic, and generally they don't have a problem. The plastic ones work pretty good, but in this vehicle we put the hot racing ends on it. It allows for adjustability, and they're just an alloy part that adds strength. So we put those on. I think that's negligible. Use them, don't use them, whatever. But below that we have a hot racing chassis brace. That is necessary. The plastic ones just don't hold up. In this kit, we didn't have one in the studio, so we did put the plastic one back in the front, and we have yet to break that one. So that's working pretty good. I put part of that into the fact that this is a short chassis vehicle, and it does have that rigid chassis underneath it, so it's not imparting quite as much energy to the braces. But if you can get aluminum ones in there, put the alloy ones in. Doesn't matter the brand. We used Hot Racing on this one. We've used a whole bunch of off-brand ones, and they all seem to work about the same if they're made out of the good aluminum. So that's really good there too. So internally, that's what we have there. We're using those braces to keep everything up and running good. And if you look on the front here, you're going to see a Kraton EXB 6S front bumper. Guys, I am such a fan of these things. These are amazing. They've got really good concussion rings in here. They take a lot of impact. They stick out just a little bit farther than the tires. So if you're centered up on something, this will take the impact like that. If you run into something flat, this will absorb a lot of the impact. But the build of it is shaped this way, like a shovel. And the cool thing is if you hit something, it'll force this up and over it because it shovels upward. So it just scoops up and over whatever you run into. This is a great advantage on this vehicle. I like it way better than the stock Notorious stuff. I like it way better than the Typhon one. Typhon? No, Talion. The Talion one is a little more squared off than this. This is the Kraton one, and it really does suit this vehicle nicely. It goes right on, and it really handles impact beautifully. If you take a look right behind it, you're going to see some skirts here. And these are the shock covers, and we really do like using those. They keep a lot of the dirt and debris off of the mechanical portions of the shock absorbers. And those are from, hang on a second, I'll get you the number for that. These are from Full Force Racing, and you can get those on eBay as well for whatever size shocks you're using. They make them for everything. Beautiful. These are attached to EXB shock towers for the Kraton. You can tell because they're red, made out of the 7075 T6 aluminum. These things are a must-have. They just are. They are much stronger. You don't have to throw a lot of money at the high-end aftermarket ones. If you've got some driving skill about yourself, you can usually get by with something just a little stronger than stock. The stuff they use out of the, like on the stock vehicles, it's that black stuff, and it bends really easily. These, on the other hand, are exceptionally tough, and they take impact like crazy. They're a really good component. It's nice to have that added on there. So with that, this makes it a pretty strong vehicle. Let's get down into the gearing real quick and let you know what we've got here. This has the stock differentials in it. It does. The drivetrain, the way we do things here at the studio is we like to keep the drivetrain stock. And the reason for that is if you buy one and get it out of the box and you see our RCs doing stuff, yours should be able to do it too. What we do is we improve the durability, but we figure they were designed to run at a certain speed, and I know you can get a lot more fun out of them going faster, and we appreciate that. We really do. But for what we do at the channel, it has the 2050 motor, it has the 150 speed control in it, and that will likely get swapped out to a 2050 with a 185 ESC. But at the same time, the differentials are stock. We didn't change anything out. It's got the stock housings to it and all of that stuff. What we do is now and then we'll change the fluids out to get different handling. And I'm not going to tell you what we did with our fluids because that's kind of a personal choice on how you want to run your vehicle. If you want to have more of something or another, you can change your fluid levels to get things to work a little better. If you lighten the fluid in the center, you can get more overspin on the back. It won't stand up so easily. If you stiffen it up, a lot of people like to put earplugs in the front. Okay, or in the center, excuse me. They like to put earplugs in the center. And if you do so, then you're looking at the possibility of throwing way more power to the back. It's going to do backflips and stuff as far as standing on the ground better. But it does make it harder to control if you can keep the front wheels down a little bit so these will overspin and get more traction in the back. Your acceleration in certain conditions can be better. It's up to you to choose what you want your vehicle to do. If you put stiffer fluid in the front, you get one type of handling. If you stiffen up the back, it loosens the back up and it gets squirrelier and it gives you a different type of handling. What do you want to do with your RC? That's what you have to decide, and then you can decide what type of oils to use to achieve that. There's one more thing that we need to talk about with this RC, and that's the radio system. And this one has the DX3 attached to it, and I love those. I've got one sitting right here. There we go. So this is the DX3 system, and this is bound to the 6-channel that's in this. Now when we built this, we put a certain radio system in it because it had one that came with the system, but we've upgraded it since then and we've put this one in it. Now a standard 6-channel with a gyro. We put that in there initially to see how that would respond. In this vehicle, guys, the gyro is not necessary. It isn't. The front wheels don't spend enough time on the ground, and if you're in the air, the gyro can be a problem. And what that comes down to is this is kind of a jumping vehicle. It's what it's for. This is a stunt vehicle, so it's going to be in the air a lot. The problem with that is if you have the gyro working, the gyro senses the angle of attack on the vehicle. In other words, when it starts to slide this way, the gyro will keep the wheels straightened out to try and straighten it out this way. So if you're running the gyro and you've got it turned up and the back end starts to slide, the gyro will steer into the skid like that. That's what the gyros do, and in certain applications like on-road vehicles and longer high-speed vehicles, that can be really nice. But once you get this off the ground, now you're in the air with this and it's up, this is what happens because the gyro doesn't know what's going on. So it'll turn this way, it'll turn that way. It has no effect on the car. But what it does do is, with the inertia of these, with the energy of the spinning tires, if you've ever taken a wheel and spun it and tried to steer it, you realize the resistance involved. When this thing is spinning under power and it turns this way, it rolls the chassis. Okay, so it can do this and this and this. In the air, without you giving it any input, you can just jump it, not touch the steering, and these things will go crazy because you got your gyro cranked up. Now the problem with that is, that's how you crash a lot when you're jumping, because you need to have the gyro turned off when you're jumping. And guys, you just do. It doesn't matter. You jump with anything with the gyro turned on and you risk problems, because as these seek, and that's what we're going to call this, while these seek trying to find traction to straighten the vehicle out the way it would on the ground, turn it this way, the chassis rolls. When it turns the other way, the chassis rolls again. But it also changes the attitude, and you can come down on the corner, you can come down on the side. It just causes chaos. You want this, when it's in the air, you want this to take the input you give it only. On this system, you can grab this knob right here and just turn it off. Now the gyro's turned off. When you get it on the ground, you can turn it right back on. Bang, this knob only, just on and off, just like that. That's why we put this in here. There's no menu to go into. There's nothing else to play with. Just turn off the gyro. Now, also, this one, the knob right next to it, is for the brakes. And the cool part of that is when you're running on this, let's say you're out on the road. These tires are brand new. They're really aggressive. And when you hit the brakes, it's a short wheelbase truck. It skids up and flips over and destroys the body because it'll slide down the pavement on the top. Your brakes are set too high. That's where the joy of this radio comes in. For a stock RTR type radio, this one has got some pretty good controls in it. The second one over, wheel it down some. Take some of the brake power out of it. You can adjust it on the fly with this one, which is what makes this radio sought after for doing this kind of thing, because you've got instantaneous controls here. Hit the brakes, it starts to come over, adjust it down some, try it again, till you get it to where it won't flip over on full braking. Full brakes, skids but doesn't flip over. That keeps control. That's where the power comes from, is being able to control your vehicle. So with brake and gyro control right here on the radio, it makes this a really good radio. All right, so let's get on to another question, and this one isn't really related all that much to this, but we get this question quite a bit here at the channel, and it is, what hex drivers do we use in our power tools when we're building these things? And it's these. And these come from Racer's Edge, and we'll get you a close picture of this so you can see what they are. These are some of the best hex drivers we've come across. We have never broken one, and they hold up really well. Actually, we've never twisted one off either, and we've put some pretty good torque on these. When you see us building with the power tools, these are what they are. So Racer's Edge hex drivers are what we use. And we've got one more question for you, and this one, now all of these come straight out of the comments, guys. This one is, why did you switch to the Talan Wing over the one that goes to this vehicle? I just think it looks better, dude. This is stylish. It adds some style. It fills it in nicely. It also is set up well. This will take the impact and not impart it to the body. It's good protection, and it seems to form directly over the body like it was designed to be on there. So we use the Talan Wing because it fits and it looks good. So there you go, the Arrma Outcast 6S, and built for the studio. This one has all the stuff in it that I wanted it to have. It's a really tough vehicle. It's fast, it's quick, it's stuntable, it's surprisingly controllable, and part of that is the wheels and tires here, guys. These have a little less mass on the outside than the backflips that come with this vehicle, and it makes it a lot more controllable. You might get a little more backflip action out of the actual stock tires, but you get plenty of action with these, and it makes it a lot more controllable. I was really shocked at how easy this was to control, and with some throttle control you can get some pretty high speeds out of it. It stunts nicely and it looks good. I'm really glad we have this one here at the studio. If you guys have done any build like this that involves the Outcast 6S, please feel free to get in the comments and share what you've done with others. Hey guys, for AJ Jam Studios, I'm AJ saying, keep bashing.